So, property relationships, brothers and sisters. So, what are the property relationships recognized under our existing law? The property relations between husband and wife shall be governed in the following order. Okay? So, number one, by marriage settlement executed before the marriage. This is what we call prenuptial agreement. Okay, pag sinabi nating pre, before, ante is before. So we're talking about an agreement. Okay, nuptial is marriage. So an agreement before marriage. So which means this is the first order of the property relationships between future spouses. Okay, whatever is the agreement entered into by and between the future spouse or future spouses, that will govern their property relationship. Kung anong pinag-usapan, yun ang mangingibabaw. If there's no agreement, then the regime of absolute community will prevail so long as the marriage was celebrated on or after August 3, 1988. Okay, pag kinasal August 3, 1988 onwards, and there's no agreement as to what type of property relationship that was agreed upon by the future spouses, then the regime of absolute community will govern their property relations. Now, if there's no agreement, but the marriage was celebrated prior to August 3, 1988, okay, so beginning 1950 yan to August 3, 1988, then the property relationship that will govern between future spouses are is conjugal partnership of gains. Mga kapatid, dito pa lang makikita natin absolute community, pagsasamahin. Dito naman, conjugal partnership of gains. So, dyan pa lang makikita natin what makes the two different. In absolute community, isang community lang yung property. Yung partnership, conjugal partnership, ano yung pinag-uusapan dyan? Only the gain ang nagiging conjugal dyan. Okay, so later we'll be discussing what how do we classify the properties of future spouses. Okay, and of course, number 4, the last one, by the local customs. So under Article 74 of the Family Code of the Philippines. Why August 3, 1988? The date actually is the date of the effectivity of the Family Code of the Philippines. So dati, ang rule that prevail is the Civil Code of the Philippines. Okay? And that pertain to conjugal partnership of gains. Now, in August 3, 1988, the Family Code of the Philippines became effective. Nagkaroon tayo ng absolute community. So, yan ang naging ano natin. And of course, the law, the Family Code of the Philippines recognize the local customs also. Okay, as a means of governing the property relationships between spouses. Next. So, in the absence of any contract or marriage settlement executed before marriage, celebration of marriage, either the conjugal or absolute community property shall govern. If there's no agreement, it's either absolute community or conjugal. Ang reckoning na lang is when was the marriage celebrated. If the marriage was celebrated before August 3, 1988, then the property relationship will be governed by conjugal partnership of gains. If there's no agreement and the marriage was made after August 3, 1988, then it's absolute community. Yan ang ibig sabihin yan. So, you can basically ask your parents where they married. So, if you are 20 and you are eldest, so that means you were born more or less year 2000. So, if we are to assume that they were married along that period, okay, so mga year 2000 or early 2000 or late 90s, then if they have no agreement as to the relationship on their properties, they will be governed by absolute community. Ganyan sila malamang kasi hindi naman common sa mga Pilipino yung antenuptial or prenuptial agreement. In fact, that applies, well, not applies. These rules applies to everyone. But the one that executes prenuptial or antenuptial agreement, okay, are those made by rich people. Okay, ante po yan hindi anti, because anti is against and ante is before. Okay? Next, modifications are valid if made before the celebration of marriage. So any changes that can be agreed by future spouses are valid so long as they are made before the celebration of marriage. Okay? So any amendments or changes or modifications after the celebration of marriage are void already. Next is must be registered with the local civil registry where the marriage contract is recorded to bind third persons. We're talking about here registration. So let's say, okay, the one that you submitted to me, the antenuptial agreement, okay, if that is agreed by you and your future spouse, it has to be registered in the local civil registry. Sa munisipyo po yan o kaya sa City Hall. Okay, meron dyan. Yung mga birth certificate nyo, dyan nyo rin makukuha minsan. Other than NSO or PSA, you can get your certificate of live birth in the local civil registry. So if a person is married to another, the marriage certificate is also registered in the local civil registry. So which means if you executed a prenuptial agreement, it has to be registered also in the local civil registry. For what purpose? To bind third persons. What do I mean by that? It's like this. Let's say Nicanor and Inday got married. Okay? Inday is rich. Nicanor is poor. Now, a creditor, if Nicanor will borrow money from a creditor, let's say a third person, sabi niya, ay si Nicanor to, alam ko mahirap si Nicanor kaya lang napangasawa niya si Inday na mayaman. So, the tendency for the creditor is to lend money to Nicanor because he knows that Nicanor is married to a rich person, to a rich woman. So necessarily, if they are married, community yan, especially if the marriage was celebrated in 1988 onwards, August 3. So since this year is 2020, most likely, absolute community yan. And then, the creditor can actually verify if there was a registered prenuptial agreement. So, nagpunta siya sa local civil registry. There was no record of prenuptial agreement. So, pinautang niya si Nicanor kasi alam niya absolute community. Kung absolute community, Nicanor already has a right on the property of Inday. So, more or less, the credit is secured. The debt is secured. Okay? So, pinahiram siya. So, ngayon, Nicanor and Inday cannot feign ignorance that cannot feign the fact that the prenuptial agreement was not registered. Hindi nila pwedeng sabihin, ay, meron kaming agreement na na absolute separation of property kami. Hindi pwedeng maging ganon because the people were not notified. It was not registered in the local civil registry. So in order for the third person to be bind on the agreement between spouses, it has to be registered in local civil registry. Meaning, kung halimbawa in my story, the prenuptial agreement was registered in the local civil registry, tapos pinautang pa rin siya, knowing fully well by the creditor na merong prenup na absolute separation sila. Pinautang pa rin si Nicanor. So in case Nicanor will not be able to pay the debt, okay, the creditor bears the risk of loss kasi notified siya na absolute separation. Pinautang pa rin niya. So, yon. So, absuelto doon si Inday. Pero, again, if the prenuptial agreement was not registered, hindi absuelto si Inday because third persons are not bound by the agreement between the spouses because the agreement was not registered. Okay? Next. Stipulations agreements is void or are void if marriage does not take place. Kung hindi matuloy ang kasal, yung pinag-usapan, of course, are void. Except stipulations that do not depend upon the celebration of the marriage are valid. Which means if there are other provisions in the prenuptial agreement, okay, can be enforced even if the marriage was not celebrated. Okay, basta can stand alone yung provision na yon, pwede pa rin yan. Okay? Pero yung agreement as to absolute separation, conjugal partnership of gains, or absolute separation of property, hindi na pwede yan kasi hindi sila nagpakasal eh. Hindi na tuloy yung kasal. Okay, next. So donations of future property shall be governed by the rules on testamentary successions or wills. Under the Civil Code of the Philippines, brothers and sisters, spouses or cannot practically donate things to each other. Ang allowed lang dyan is what we call moderate gift. Okay? Yung moderate gift, hindi yan, walang nakalagay how much is the threshold. So it depends upon the circumstance of the person if what is moderate. So example, if Nicanor will give a gift to Inday, his wife, the amount of which is 1 million, can we say that is moderate? Well, again, it depends on the circumstances of Nicanor and Inday. Kasi if Nicanor and Inday are ordinary workers, then 1 million pesos is significant. That's not moderate. Pero if Nicanor is a billionaire, that 1 million peso gift is moderate. So, pwede yan. Okay? That's why here, yung donations of future spouses governed by the rules on succession. Kasi nga, hindi pwedeng basta-basta mag-donate na lang. Okay? And sometimes, I think I mentioned already, meron tayong tinatawag na collation. Whatever that was given to the compulsory heir may be added back to the estate for purposes of distributing the legitime. Okay, so yan ang rule. So let's discuss the different kinds of property relationships. But before I go there, why do we have to discuss these property relationships? Brothers and sisters, this is very important for purposes of computing the gross estate of the decedent. Kasi if the decedent is married, and the decedent has different kinds of properties, exclusive or community/conjugal. If we don't know how to compute or classify the property, edi magkakamali tayo in computing the gross estate and also in computing the share of the heirs. What if the second compulsory heir dies? Yung share niya, paano natin malalaman ang proper gross estate niya if we don't know how to compute the distribution of the property? Okay, so yan ba ay conjugal, yan ba ay exclusive? So yan ang aalamin natin. Okay, but of course, before we will be able to do that, we have to understand first the rules on property relationships and then properly classifying the properties, whether they are exclusive or conjugal or community. Okay? So, conjugal partnership of gains or CPG. It shall commence at the precise moment that the marriage is celebrated. It's always like that, even in absolute community property. Any stipulation expressed or implied for the commencement of the community regime at any other time shall be void. Meaning, brothers and sisters, if the future spouses agreed on the property relationship, they cannot agree that the same shall take effect 1 year after their marriage. So halimbawa ngayong year na to, ay ngayong araw nagpakasal. And they agreed, pwede ba yung property relationship natin will start after our first year anniversary? Can the future spouses do that? Under the law, they cannot, because any stipulation for the commencement or the start of the regime at any other time shall be void. Okay? Next, conjugal partnership of gains is also called relative community of properties. Why relative? Because it's not absolute. Because absolute community of properties is different from this relative community. Because in relative community, what is basically put into community is or are gains. Okay? Next. So gains, not necessarily in the literal sense of the gain, but any gain earned by the household, okay, by the spouses, which I will give you an example later. And then we also have, okay, just to save us some bandwidth, the provisions of the Civil Code of the Philippines govern the relationship. Sabi nga natin, since the marriage was celebrated prior to August 3, 1988, then the law that will govern basically is the Civil Code of the Philippines. Next, applicable to marriages celebrated before August 3, 1988. Sinasabi natin paulit-ulit yan. Or, even if the marriage was celebrated after, on or before August 3, on or after August 3, kahit na yan, August 3, 1988 or after, pwede pa rin yan maging CPG so long as the future spouses has chose this kind of property relationship. So which means, if you have a boyfriend today, you profess your love that you will remain loyal forever, and so you will marry each other, and you decided conjugal partnership of gains as your property relationship, then CPG shall be your property relationship because that's what you agreed before the celebration of marriage. Next, CPG shall be governed by the rules of on the contract of partnership. Ayan, meron na kayong contract of partnership, right? I mean, law on partnership and corporation. So, remember, we're talking about contracts here. It is an agreement between two persons, and partnership is a communion of two or more persons, right? So, any or all agreement entered by the spouses will be governed also by the contract of partnership. So, ano ba yung so i-relate natin the provisions that you have learned in your law on partnership. Okay? Ano ba yung distribution diyan? Ano ba yung dissolution diyan? So later we'll be discussing on that also. So shall be governed by the rules on the contract of partnership in all that is not in conflict with that is expressly determined by the spouses, which means the law on partnerships will apply suppletorily in this instance. Okay? If the family code or the civil code of the Philippines does not provide any provision particular to an issue, then the contract of partnership will apply suppletorily. Okay? And administration and enjoyment shall belong to both spouses jointly. Okay, so which means the husband and the wife basically can enjoy jointly, okay, the administration of the property. So even if, let's say, the husband, siya ang bumili ng property during the subsistence of the marriage, hindi pwedeng sabihin ni husband, ako ang bumili dito, ako ang masusunod dito. That's not the case. Because if the property belonged to conjugal partnership of gains, okay, such administration will fall also to the other spouse who did not contribute to the purchase. Okay? Kasi nga, merong mga provision later that will support that provision. Okay? Next. So, conjugal partnership of gains, brothers and sisters. So, what are exclusive properties and what are conjugal properties? So, let's start with exclusive properties. Meaning, pag exclusive properties, ito lang ang mga properties na pagmamay-ari ng future ng husband or the wife. Okay, so what are exclusive properties? First is properties brought into the marriage as his or her own. Meaning, if I am single, I have a house, I have 4 cars. If I will get married tomorrow, and then I will choose conjugal partnership of gains as the property relationship with my future spouse, then whatever I brought to the marriage is mine. And whatever properties that will be brought to the marriage by my future spouse is also hers. Okay? Kung ano ang akin ngayon ay akin pa rin after the marriage. In the same way, that works also on the part of the spouse. Okay? Ano pa? Second, properties acquired by gratuitous title during the marriage. What does it mean when I say gratuitous title? Meaning, you acquired title to the property through gratitude, through donation or succession. Okay, so it was given to you by donation or succession. Example, sabi ng magulang niyo, I am donating this house and lot to you as our child. Then, even if you are already married, that property donated to you by your parents is acquired by gratuitous title, which will make the property your exclusive property. Okay? I hope I am clear on that. Pero pag sinabi naman ng donor, ay sabi ng parents, since you are married, the two of you, we have this house and lot, we want to give you the property to the two of you. That will make the property conjugal because the intent of the donor in that case is for the both of you to get the property. Okay, pero it's different when the donor, your parents normally would have expressly said that the property is given to the child only. Okay, hindi sa asawa. So sa anak lang, exclusive property ng anak yan. Third, properties acquired by right of redemption. Dito muna tayo sa right of redemption. Okay? Properties acquired by right of redemption. Meaning, okay, apply muna natin yung rule. Let's say Nicanor has a house. He mortgaged the property of the value of which is 2 million. He mortgaged the property to the bank. Let's say for 1 million. It's a security. In case the mortgage will not be paid, the bank can acquire the property through foreclosure sale. Okay? So ngayon mga kapatid, nangutang si Nicanor sa bank, mortgage his property as a security. So in case Nicanor will not be able to pay the mortgage, then the bank will get the property and then sell it. Okay? Just to cover the mortgage. Now, the mortgage happened prior to marriage. Bago ikasal, may utang na. Ikinasal na ngayon. Hindi pa rin siya nakabayad. So, kinuha ng bank yung property. And remember, in the law on sales, there is what we call right of redemption on the part of the owner of the property. Which means, the owner can redeem the property within 1 year from the date of foreclosure sale. So, which means, if the property was redeemed even after or during the marriage of Nicanor, okay, kinuha niya, niredeem niya yung property out of his own money. Okay? So, yung property na na-acquire, niredeem niya will fall under exclusive property of Nicanor. Okay? That is properties acquired by right of redemption. Now, on the second part, or by exchange with other property belonging to only one of the spouses. What does this mean? Let's say Nicanor has a property. Let's say it's located in Barangay 1. And then there's a property in Barangay 2. And the owner of that property, they agreed to exchange the property. So that exclusive property in Barangay 1, okay, when exchanged to the property located in Barangay 2, is still an exclusive property. And therefore, an exclusive should be treated as an exclusive property of Nicanor. Okay, kasi exclusive property niya dati yan sa property 1, nag-exchange lang naman eh. Nagpalit lang. So, exclusive property pa rin niya yun kahit na bagong lupa na siya. And the fourth one, letter D, properties acquired with exclusive money of either spouse, brothers and sisters. I-relate natin tong A sa letter D. In A, properties brought into the marriage as his or her own. Dala-dala mo yung property bago ka magpakasal. So, exclusive property mo yan. So, if you have money, if you have bank accounts Okay, meron kang pera. Kinasal ka. Yung pera mo, exclusive property. So yung pera mo na yan, if you use the money to buy other properties, so out of your exclusive money, then the exclusive money, the exclusive properties acquired with the use of exclusive money is also your exclusive property. Okay? So yan ang mga exclusive properties. Outside of these exclusive properties are conjugal properties. So ano-ano ba itong mga to? Letter A, properties acquired by onerous title. Onerous title, kabaligtaran yan yung gratuitous. Okay, so pag onerous title, merong consideration. So properties acquired by onerous title during the marriage. Okay, ayan ang keywords dyan. Sulat ko lang. Ano yung mga keywords during the marriage? Kailan nakuha yung property? During the marriage. Oh, anong meron dyan? Conjugal. At the expense, saan galing ang pera? Common fund nila. The spouses. Therefore, the properties belong to the conjugal. Okay, are conjugal. Whether the acquisition be for the partnership or for only one of the spouses. Meaning, halimbawa, the husband and the wife married already, and they chose conjugal partnership of gains as their property relationship. Nakapag-ipon sila ng pera, let's say 5 million pesos. Now, the husband said, ano kaya, mommy, bumili pa tayo, bili kita ng panibagong bahay at lupa, gamitin natin yung pera, sa'yo na yan. So, if that happened, that house and lot purchased out of the common fund by the spouses, even if it's only for the benefit of the one spouse, then it shall belong to the conjugal properties. Okay? Yan ang ibig sabihin yan. Letter B. Properties obtained from labor, industry, work, or profession of either or both of the spouses. Kasal na sila, nagtrabaho sila, meron silang business, they practice their profession. So any properties acquired therefrom, okay, belongs to the conjugal partnership of gains. Letter C, the fruits. We're talking about fruits here, natural, industrial, or civil. Natural fruits, I hope you still remember what natural fruits. Industrial fruits, okay, at saka sa mga civil fruits, yung mga rental, yung mga literally, yung mga fruits ng mga trees. Okay, so yung mga fruits yan. Due or received during the marriage ulit tayo, from the common property. So halimbawa, merong apartment na pag-aari yung mag-asawa. Conjugal partnership of gains sila. So yung rental income na fruit, yan ay conjugal property. Kung meron silang pera, pinautang nila yan to other persons, and then it earned interest income, that is a fruit that should fall under conjugal property. Okay? Ito pang importante dyan. As well as the net fruits from the exclusive property of each spouse. Mga kapatid, i-relate natin to dito. This one, okay, this one, yung letter A in exclusive property to this one. Halimbawa, you own an apartment. Okay? So nagpakasal ka under conjugal partnership of gains. How do we classify the apartment? Exclusive. Kasi any property brought to the marriage is exclusive property. Pero yung rental income, ito, no fruits from the exclusive property. Yung rental income, kahit na ang source niyan came from the exclusive property, then the rent income belongs to the conjugal properties. Okay, yung property mismo, exclusive, but the fruits will belong to conjugal. Okay, yan ang ibig sabihin po niyan. So, wag niyong kakalimutan yan, ha? Again, for purposes of highlighting this one, if the property relationship is conjugal partnership of gains, anything you bring to the marriage is yours, exclusive property yan. But not the fruits. Meaning, from the time of the celebration of the marriage, if that exclusive property earned an income, meron siyang fruit, that fruit will belong to conjugal properties. Sabi nga natin, ano ba yung partnership? Eh di yung gain, yan ang pinaghahatian dyan. So yung fruits na yan, yung gain na yan, okay, ay conjugal. Parang dito, galing yan sa trabaho nila, conjugal yan. Okay, itong property na to, acquired, ayan, galing sa pera nila. So yung fruit ng pera nila na yan, okay, conjugal yan. Letter D, the share of either spouse in the hidden treasure. Hidden to hindi open to plain sight. Which the law awards the finder or owner of the property where the treasure is found. Okay? Yan ay conjugal property. Mga kapatid, dito meron tayong mga specific rule dito sa mga hidden treasure. So, mga requirement yan, if you found the treasure that is hidden in a land that is not owned by anybody, the treasure is yours. Okay? If you found the treasure that is hidden from a property that is owned by another person, yung other person, the owner of the property, meron siyang share. Kaya owner, ito finder. Ito owner of the property. So, kung meron nakakita ng hidden treasure sa lupa mo, kahit sa lupa mo pa nakita yan, hindi ikaw ang ibig sabihin may-ari ka agad. Yung finder, meron din siyang share dyan. So, ikaw, kahit ikaw nakakita, pero yan ay nasa ibang property na pagmamayari ng iba, yung owner meron din siyang share. Okay, that's how our law works. Okay? So, that share in the hidden treasure is conjugal or belong to conjugal properties. Letter E, properties acquired through occupation such as fishing. So, kung tatay mo mangingisda, okay, hunter. Ano bang Tagalog ng hunter? Okay, basta hunter siya. So whatever that was acquired through fishing, ayan, nakapangisda, hati sila ni Mommy and Daddy, conjugal property yan eh. Okay, kung nakakuha na halimbawa ng yung baboy damo sa bundok, okay, hati sila dyan. Conjugal property yan belonging to CPG. Letter F, livestock existing upon the dissolution of the partnership in excess of the number of each kind brought to the marriage by either spouse. So we're talking about livestock dito mga manok, yung mga baboy, okay, at iba pa. Letter G, properties acquired by chance such as winning from gambling and betting. Okay, mga kapatid, clarify ko lang tong G na to dito sa exclusive properties. Okay? Example, if the agreement is conjugal partnership of gains. Remember, any property brought to the marriage by the spouse ay sa kanya lamang. Exclusive na yan. So, kung exclusive money niya, bumili siya ng loto at nanalo siya, yung winnings na yan ay exclusive property because it belonged to the exclusive money of the spouse. But if the property, okay, that was acquired by chance from loto, tsaka gambling and betting, came from the conjugal property, then the winnings are conjugal. Okay? Yan lang inaano natin kasi dito hindi masyadong yan exclusive money daw Yung properties acquired with exclusive money, the exclusive property yan. So dito naman, winnings from gambling and betting. Okay? Paano pag natalo? Kung natalo, the loser bears the loss. So kung yung tatay ay natalo, bawas yan sa kanyang conjugal share. Okay? So what about the absolute community of properties? Absolute na to, hindi na to relative community. Okay? Just like in conjugal partnership of gains. Okay, it shall commence at the precise moment that the marriage is celebrated. Any stipulation, express or implied, or the commencement of the community regime at any other time shall be void. So the provisions of the Family Code of the Philippines shall govern. And This applies to marriage celebrated on or after August 3. Okay? Hindi po siya after, on or after. So, on or after August 3, 1988. Kasi ang date ng effectivity is August 3, 1988. The provisions on co-ownership shall apply to ACP, absolute community of properties between the spouses. Remember the difference. The conjugal partnership of gains, okay, the provisions on partnership, contract of partnership shall govern suppletorily. In absolute community properties, co-ownership naman po, silang dalawa may-ari. Okay? This one, again, the rule on co-ownership applies to absolute community of properties. And then property acquired during the marriage is presumed to belong to the community unless proven that it is one of those excluded, meaning it's an exclusive property. So, yan. Presumption, dispute, the presumption, it belongs to the community. Okay? Unless there's proof that it is an exclusive property. And then, just like in conjugal partnership of gains or CPG, the administration and enjoyment shall belong to both spouses jointly, even if only one of the spouses bought the property, okay, during the subsistence of the marriage. So what are exclusive and community properties under absolute community properties? Let's go to letter A, okay, under exclusive. Anong sabi po dyan, mga kapatid? Exclusive properties. Properties acquired during the marriage by gratuitous or lucrative title by either spouse. Okay? So, kanina sa conjugal partnership of gains, if you inherited a property or you acquired a property by donation, dinonate sa'yo, exclusive property mo pa rin yan. Okay? So, in absolute community, the rule is the same. If the property was donated to you or you acquired it by succession, gratuitous title, okay, gratuitous title, that property shall belong to you. Exclusive mo pa rin yan. Ano pa? As well, and the fruits, as well as the income, sa'yo din yan. Exclusive property mo rin yan. Okay? Unless, ito yan, ito yung exception. It is specifically provided by the donor, testator, or grantor that they shall form part of the community. Meaning, the one that I have discussed already. According to your parents, sabi niya, since you are both married now and we want you to live independently, we are donating our house and lot to you. So, from that tenor, it seems that the property is being donated to both spouses. In that case, the property shall belong to community property. Pero pag sinabi, since you are our child, we want you to be happy, itong bahay na to, at saka lupa na to, sa'yo yan, anak. So, walang binanggit as to the wife or the husband. So, therefore, that will make the property an exclusive property of the child. Okay? Letter B, property for personal use and for personal and exclusive use of either spouse. So, yung the toothpaste and the toothpaste, conjugal yan. Pero yung toothbrush, exclusive property yan. Kasi mga personal exclusive use yan. Okay? Yung mga underwear, undies, these are personal exclusive properties of either spouses. So yung brief kay husband, yung panty kay wife. Okay, yung mga damit na panlalaki at pambabae, even if you can see your parents that sometimes they wear each other's shirt or shorts, under our rule, if they were married from August 3 onwards, okay, that property, so long as it's personal and exclusive, it's an exclusive property of the husband or the wife. Okay, yung jewelries, yan ay conjugal. Letter C, properties acquired before the marriage by either spouse who has legitimate descendants by former marriage and the fruits as well as the income, if any, of such property. Let me give you, or let me expound on letter C. Properties acquired before the marriage by either spouse who has legitimate descendants. Okay? So let's say si Nicanor, okay, at saka si Inday nagpakasal. Meron silang anak, si Junior. So meron silang bahay at lupa. Now, namatay ngayon si Nicanor. Okay? Now, Inday married after si Z. Okay? Nagkaanak sila. Halimbawa, si RJ. Okay. Si Inday, nung ikinasal, mga kapatid, this property acquired before the marriage, na meron silang legitimate descendant from previous marriage, prior marriage to Nicanor, is an exclusive property of Inday. Exclusive niya yan. It cannot belong to the community of property. Remember, ang community property ay alin? Very simple lang. Letter A. All properties acquired by spouses at the time of the celebration of marriage or acquired thereafter, yan ay community. Which means, everything you bring to the marriage is a community property. Or it belongs to the community of properties. And any properties acquired after marriage is also a community property. Okay? Eh, itong letter C, kahit na dinala mo yan sa marriage, if the property was acquired from a previous marriage, okay, with a legitimate descendant, it remains exclusive property. Ang tawag po natin dito, mga kapatid, ay reserva troncal. Okay, sinishare ko lang yan, for your information lang yan. Reserva troncal. Troncal. Okay? So the property, this one, is being reserved to the descendants of the spouses Nicanor and Inday. Kasi merong legacy yan si Nicanor eh. Yan ay, yung bahay na yan ay tanda ng pagmamahala ni Nicanor at saka ni Inday. At ang naging bunga ng kanilang pagmamahalan ay si Junior. And therefore, the law reserves that property to Junior. Kaya nga hindi siya pwede maging community dito sa kasal ni Inday kay letter Z. Kasi pag yan ay naging community, kanino mapupunta yung property? Kay RJ na posibleng mapunta yung property. Eh, ala-ala yan ni Nicanor at saka ni Inday itong bahay na to. Okay? So that is the meaning of letter C. So these are exclusive properties. So what are community properties? Again, all properties owned by the spouses at the time of the celebration of marriage or acquired thereafter. Kanina mga kapatid, in conjugal partnership of gains. Any property you bring to the marriage is exclusive property. Sa'yo yan. In absolute community, kaya nga absolute community eh. Whatever you bring during the celebration, before the marriage, when the marriage happens, okay, yung property na yan ay hindi na sa'yo, kalahati na lang ang pagmamay-ari mo. Maliwanag po ba tayo dyan? Sana maliwanag yan ha. Kaya alam nyo mga kapatid, di ba yung iba? Bata yung babae, pagkatapos may yung magulang, merong nirereto sa sobrang matanda na, tapos ang demand ng magulang, kailangan magpakasal kayo. For what purpose? Because if you get married during this time, after 1988 August 3, then, ayan, all properties owned by the spouses at the time of celebration of marriage, community. So the moment you said, I do, and you signed the marriage contract, then half of that already is yours. Okay, yan ang concept ng absolute community. So, and jewelries also belong to the community of properties. Okay? Okay po ba tayo dyan mga kapatid?
Yes po.
Okay, very good. Let's go to the next one, exercises. Tignan natin to kung naintindihan natin ha. Identify whether conjugal community, or exclusive? These are the types of properties, okay? Tell me if it's con. Tell me if it's con or com or exclusive, kung exclusive man yan. Okay? Number 1, cash deposits owned by Nicanor prior to marriage. So, meron siyang cash bago ikasal. Kung conjugal partnership of gains yan, ang cash deposit ay exclusive property because any property that you bring to the marriage is exclusive. In absolute community, kung meron kang cash at ikakasal ka, the moment na ikasal ka na, ayun, kalahati na lang ang sayo. Community na kasi yan. Okay? Number 2, interest income of bank deposits of Nicanor. Okay? This number 2 is related to number 1, ha? Merong cash deposit yan sa bangko. Ngayon, kumita ng interest income. How do we classify the interest income under conjugal partnership of gains? Anong sabi natin? Conjugal. The fruits of the exclusive property become conjugal. How about in community? Baligtad. Hindi pala. Community pa rin ang fruits. Okay? Parang, okay. This one is, this one, wait lang ha. Okay, this was community. Number 3, apartment inherited by Inday during the marriage. Okay, Minana, gratuitous title. Anong sabi natin? Conjugal partnership of gains. Ayun, exclusive. Okay, absolute community, inherited during the marriage. Exclusive pa rin. By gratuitous title yan eh. Next, number 4. Rental income of the apartment. Ayun, oh, merong rental income. Anong sabi natin? Pag merong, ang tawag dito, pag merong fruits, conjugal. Dito, exclusive. Okay? I think this one is exclusive. Okay, exclusive po kasi ang fruits. Okay, let me correct that. Number 5. Condominium unit owned by Inday before the marriage. Okay, meron siyang kondo bago ikasal. Ano yan? Under conjugal partnership of gains. Natural, exclusive. Community. Natural, community. Okay. Number 6. Exclusive properties of Nicanor and Inday. Nako, minsan wag na tayo mag-analyze. Nakalagay na nga, exclusive properties. Natural, exclusive yan. Exclusive yan. Okay. Number 7. Property acquired by Nicanor and Inday during the marriage. Okay? Presumption, conjugal. Presumption, community. Bakit? During the marriage yan eh. Okay? Huwag kang mag-analyze, huwag kang mag-super-duper analyze when answering questions. Huwag mong sasabihin na, during the marriage, hindi sinabi sa problem kung galing sa exclusive money ba to o conjugal money. Okay? Sinabi lang dyan. So, ang presumption natin dyan, conjugal community. Number 8. Gift of parents of Nicanor to both Nicanor and Inday. So, yung parents, okay, gratuitous title din yan. Ang objective is to give the property to both Nicanor and Inday. So, basically, we're talking about the intent of the donors to give the property to both spouses. So, therefore, the property shall be classified under CPG as conjugal and community under community of properties. Okay, number 9. Foreclosed property redeemed by Inday during the marriage. Okay, merong right of redemption exercised by Inday. So in CPG, how do we classify the property? Exclusive. How about in community? Community. Why? Because any property that you bring to the marriage or acquired thereafter is community. Okay. Number 10, conjugal property of Nicanor from previous marriage. This is what we call reserva troncal. In CPG, how do we classify the property? Of course, exclusive. How about in absolute community of property? Okay, it's still exclusive property. Okay, So I hope, brothers and sisters, these exercises helps you to understand better the concept of classification of properties, applying the rules on the different property relationships of the spouses. Okay? Let's proceed now to the dissolution of CPG. This is CPG and ACP. In your handout, what was shared to you basically are the different kinds of property relationships. Now, I included this one in the presentation so that you would know. So basically, this is only for purposes of your information. How do we dissolve the property relationship? Whether it's conjugal property, of conjugal partnership of gains, or ACP. Okay? So this is how we dissolve the property relationship. Number one, upon the death of either spouse. Naturally, there can be no more conjugal partnership and no more absolute community because any properties acquired by the surviving spouse is now exclusive property because there's no somebody, okay, for whom that property will be shared by the other spouse. Mag-isa ka na lang eh. Okay? When there is a decree of legal separation, there is an order by the court that the spouses are now legally separated. Okay? So, dissolve na yung property relationship. When the marriage is annulled, annulment. So, meaning void from the, it's as if the marriage was did not take place or declared void. Okay, so void a marriage. Ano ba yung mga void a marriage dyan? Yung mga lacking informal and essential requisites. Essential requisites include yung without consent of the spouse. So the spouse can be minor or insane, or the consent was acquired by fraud, by mistake, violence, undue influence, or intimidation. So void ang marriage. Okay, so dissolving property relationship. Next is, in case of judicial separation, there is also an order by the court, okay, of property during the marriage. So dissolved na yung CPG and ACP. Okay? So the third one is regime of separation of property. So how does this work? Very simple. Separation of property may refer to present or future property or both. It may be total or partial. In the latter case, the property not agreed upon as separate shall pertain to absolute community. So meaning, the spouses may agree, okay, before the marriage, of course. Sabi nila, itong property ko na to, itong property mo na to, okay, yung present na properties natin, exclusive property natin. Bakit exclusive? Separate kasi eh. Okay? The parties can also agree that any property they acquired from the moment of their marriage, yung atin ngayon bago ikasal, atin lang yan. Pero pag kinasal na tayo, whatever we acquire can belong to absolute community or conjugal partnership of gains. Yun ang tinatawag na present. Yung ngayon, atin-atin lang yan. Yung future, hati tayo. It may be total. Ano yung total? Lahat ng property ko ngayon, lahat ng magiging property ko ay akin lamang. Ikaw din. Kung meron kang property ngayon, it's yours. Anything you acquire thereafter is also yours. That is total. Yung kanina, yung partial. Before the marriage is celebrated, whatever is ours is ours alone. Whatever is mine, yours is yours. Whatever you acquire thereafter during the marriage is community or conjugal, depending on the agreement. So, if in case, okay, in the latter case, sabi dyan, the property not agreed, kung hindi nyo na isama, not agreed upon, bakit siya magpo-fall sa absolute community? Kasi po, After 1988 na yan, August 3, 1988. Ngayon ay 2020 na. Kaya, if the property not agreed upon as separate, okay, by the spouses, shall belong now to the absolute community. Unless they decide that the property relationship on the future property, okay, shall belong to conjugal. Eh dito, wala namang agreement. Kaya absolute community na. Next, each spouse shall own, dispose of, possess, administer, and enjoy his or her own separate estate without need of the consent of the other. Eh, naturally, that property is yours. It's your exclusive property. So, ikaw masusunod dyan. Unlike in community, unlike in conjugal, the administration and enjoyment is joint. Okay, joint doon. Dito, in separation of property, you can do whatever you please, whatever you want with the property, your exclusive property. What else? To each spouse shall belong all earnings from his or her profession, business or industry, and all fruits due or received during the marriage from his or her separate property. Natural. Right? If you are agreeing to separation of property, absolute separation, whatever is mine, whatever is yours, whatever I earn is mine, whatever you earn is yours. Okay? Yan ang ibig sabihin yan. So, ba't pa kayo nag-asawa? De, joke lang. Pwede naman yan. Okay? So, at least meron silang independent policy as to their properties. Pwede ba silang mangilam? Hindi. Sabi natin without need of the consent. So, both spouses shall bear the family expenses. How do they distribute the family expenses? In proportion to their income, mga kapatid in proportion to their income. Let me highlight this one again because there's one author. Ang sabi niya, ang kanyang position, the distribution is equally daw. It cannot be equal because our law was clear. In case of separation, absolute separation of property or complete separation of property, the expenses, the family expenses shall be divided in proportion to their income. Okay, so meaning, kung halimbawa, kumikita ng 50,000 si wife, si husband 100,000. Okay? So total 150,000 yan. So kung ang total expenses ay 60,000. Okay, magkano kay husband? Kay wife? 1/3. So 20,000 dito 40,000. Ganyan ang sharing. Okay, hindi siya pwedeng maging equal. Paano kung ganito yung equal na pinagmamalaki ng author na yon? So let's say ganito. Ang sweldo ni babae, 100,000. Okay, this is the wife. Sweldo ni husband. Sorry, nawala. Sweldo ni husband, 10,000. Family expense, 50,000. Kung 50-50 yan, paano pa ma-share ni husband? Ano pang matitira sa kanya? Kung 50-50 yan. Diba? So, yan yun, So, the family expenses shall be allocated in proportion to their income. Okay? Or in case of insufficiency or default thereof. So, kung walang trabaho, walang income, to the current market value of their separate spouses. Kung walang income si husband or si wife, okay, ano ang magiging rule? To the current market value of their separate spouses. Meaning, kung halimbawa si wife, ang kanyang property ay nagkakahalaga ng 10 million, ang property ni husband ay 1 million, ganyan ang distribution. So, yung shares sa family expense ni husband will be deducted accordingly sa kanyang property. Okay, that's the meaning of the second part of the provision. Okay, next. The liabilities of the spouses to creditors of the family. okay, shall be solidary. So even if they agreed, the spouses agreed on absolute separation of the property as regards the creditors, okay, for family expenses, solidary yan. Meaning, they can collect from the wife or the husband, and in return, we're talking about solidary liability here. Remember the rules in your law on obligation in contract. If the other party is obligated to pay in full because of the nature of the solidary liability, then the one who paid, the recourse is to collect from the other party. Okay? So, yun ha. So, let's go now to the property regime of unions without marriage. So, ito yung mga live-in sa madaling salita. So, how do we treat their property relationship? Okay? So, there are two kinds, basically. Persons without legal impediment to marry or falling under void marriage, or other cases, merong legal impediment to marry. So we're talking about with legal impediment, we're talking about without legal impediment. Explain ko ang without legal impediment. Let's say Nicanor is single, Inday is single. As in literally, they have not married anyone before. So talagang parehas na single. So if they live together, then they fall under persons without legal impediment. Kasi parehas silang single eh. Yung persons with legal impediment to marry, si Nicanor ay kasal dati, or si Inday ay kasal dati, or pwedeng parehas silang kasal. But they were not happy with their spouses. And they found happiness in their arms. So Nicanor and Inday, okay, live together as husband and wife. So in their case, there is legal impediment to marry because they cannot marry. Right? There is an impediment. What is the impediment? Their prior marriage with their spouses. Okay, so merong pagkakaiba ang property relationship dyan. So, let's discuss this one. Persons without legal impediment. Parehas silang malayang magpakasal. Pero, ayaw nila magpakasal. Or, they have yet to decide whether or not they want to get married. Okay? Or, eto yan, under a void marriage. Okay, void ang kanilang kasal. Maybe they are both insane or they are both underage. So yan yung mga qualities of a void marriage. How do we distribute or treat the properties? The wages and salaries owned equally. Kung magkano yung sweldo ng isa, equal tayo. That's the rule. Walang legal impediment to marry. So kung live-in lang yung magulang mo, si tatay lang ang nagtatrabaho, yung sweldo ni tatay, happy sila ni mami. Although, realistically speaking, the money, sometimes all of it goes to the mother. Right? Kasi siya yung nagbabudget. Pero in law, the salaries and wages are owned equally. What else? In number 2, property acquired by both of them through their work or industry shall be governed by the rules on co-ownership. Co-owner sila sa mga properties na ma-acquire nila. Live-in sila, both single, there's no legal impediment. Whatever they acquire during their cohabitation is governed by the rules on co-ownership. Dalawas tayong mag-ari niyan. Okay? The presumption on acquisition of property is through joint efforts and owned equally. Yun parati, kalahati ang kanilang sharing. Kaya nila na-acquire yung property because the guy and the girl contributed money to buy the property. Okay? The contribution, ito very important. The contribution of the other part, it is not other party who did not participate in the acquisition of any property is the efforts consisted in the care in maintenance of the family and of the household. What do I mean by, what does this mean? So, let's just say your parents are living together and they are not married. Your father is the one providing for the family, nagtatrabaho siya. Si mommy, nasa bahay lang siya, inaalagaan ka at saka yung tatay mo. Okay? Yung tatay mo, pag bumili ng property, co-own pa rin sila ng mami mo kahit wala siyang contribution. Bakit? It's because under our law, the contribution of the mother, the one who is not working, is the efforts. Okay, the efforts in the care and maintenance of the family and of the household. So, if there's a guy saying, yung mga ano, ang tawag dito, yung nanunumbat, wala kang itulong sa ating pamilya, lahat ng property na yan, kung hindi sa akin, hindi natin makukuha yan. Alam mo na ikaw ay nasa bahay lamang. So, wala kang karapatan sa mga property na yan. Ay, mali si father. Bakit? Under the Civil Code, Family Code of the Philippines to. Okay, Family Code of the Philippines to. The share is equal. The contribution of the mother is equal to the efforts given in the care and maintenance of the family. Okay? So, ayan. How about in case there is a void marriage? Okay? Party in good faith. So, hindi mo alam, void pala yung marriage na nung nagpakasal ka. Hindi pala totoo yun. Niloko ka lang pala. Okay? Walang legal impediment. Parehas kayong single, ha? Parehas kayong single. Kaya lang yung pinakasalan mo, okay, bad faith siya, ikaw good faith, hindi mo alam na void pala yung marriage nyo. Ano yung distribution of property? Your share is still yours. Okay? Whatever is yours, your contribution is still yours. How about the share of the one who is in bad faith? Yung nanloko. Alam niya na void pala yung marriage nyo. Niloko ka niya. How do we distribute the property? Okay. According to the Family Code of the Philippines, the share shall be forfeited in favor of their common children. Mapupunta sa inyong mga anak. In default, kung walang mga anak, or if waived, the children did not accept the forfeited share of the party in bad faith, the share shall belong to the innocent party. Okay? Sa hindi nandaya. But forfeiture shall take place upon termination of the cohabitation. Natural naman. Pag hindi na kayo magkasama, doon pa lang pwedeng makuha yung sharing. It cannot happen during the subsistence of the cohabitation. Bakit? May conciliation pa kayo eh. Or possible conciliation. Okay? Next. How about in case there is a legal impediment to marry? Meaning they cannot get married because they have previous marriage. Okay? Only the properties acquired by both of the properties so through their actual joint effort, kung ano lang talaga yung pinaghirapan nila, yun ang kanila. Okay, contribution of money, property, or industry shall be owned by them in common. Okay, in proportion to their contribution. Kung ano yung kinontribute mo, yun lang ang sa'yo. So, kung walang contribution, wala. Okay, presumption is equal if there's no proof, meaning, pinagsama yung mga pera nila sa bank deposit, okay, sa deposit. Pinagsama, 1 million. Hindi malaman kung magkano kung sino yung nag-deposit. Okay? So, the 1 million is equal. Okay? 500,000 for the guy, 500,000 for the girl. Ganyan yan. Okay. Now, what if one person is a party in a valid marriage? Or both of them. Meaning, halimbawa, yung story natin kanina. Halimbawa, si Nicanor ay kasal kay Inday. Okay? Pagkatapos, si Inday naman ay nagmahal. Oh my God. Kanino? Let's say si Jose na lang. Okay? Kasal pa rin si Inday kay Nicanor. Ano ngayon ang mangyayari? If Inday is a party in a valid marriage with Nicanor, okay, the share shall accrue to the absolute community. So yung pinaghirapan nilang dalawa rito, okay, yung contribution ni Inday ay mapupunta saan? Sa absolute community or conjugal partnership with Nicanor. Okay? Yun ang pagkakaiba. The property shall redound to the benefit of the valid and subsisting property relationship with the legal wife or the husband. Okay? What if the person is a party in bad faith? Okay? Who is not validly married? Anong sabi? Katulad nung kanina, the share shall be forfeited in favor of their common children. In default, walang common child, walang anak. Or if the children waive their right to the share that was forfeited by a party in bad faith, the share shall belong to the innocent party. Just the same, okay, forfeiture shall take place upon termination of the cohabitation. Okay? So next, practice tayo, mga kapatid. Your grandfather, Nicanor, married your grandmother, Inday, on February 14, 1980. Okay? Ang sabi dyan, what is their property relationship? Mga kapatid, in answering questions, you don't need to overthink. You don't need to overanalyze. You just need to stick to the facts. You do not add facts to the facts. Okay? Meaning, halimbawa, ito yung question. Ito yung fact. Your grandfather Nicanor married your grandmother Inday on February 14, 1980. You do not assume, ay, walang binabanggit yung problem kung merong proper agreement. Huwag mo sasabihin na may agreement. Wala namang binabanggit as to agreement. Yan lang ang nakalagay dyan. So, dyan ka lang magsasagot. Dyan mo lang ibase ang sagot mo. So, ikinasal ang lolo mo at saka lola. Kailan? February 14, 1980. Ano yung property relationship nila? Ayan, ang sagot. Conjugal partnership of gains. Because any marriage contracted before August 3, 1988 belongs to conjugal partnership of gains. That's how easy we should answer simple questions. Let's go to number 2. Question number 2. Nicanor married Inday on February 14, year 2000. O, yan ang sinasabi ko. You do not add facts to the facts. Huwag mong iisipin, ay, ano kaya to? May agreement ba? Walang binanggit dito, silent. Hindi silent yan, talagang walang binanggit. So, diyan ka lang mag-stick. Okay, basically what I'm trying to do here is training you on how to properly answer questions by sticking to the facts alone. Pinakasalan ni Nicanor si Inday on February 14, 2000. What's the property relationship? Answer, absolute community of property. Why? Because they were married after August 3, 1988. So which means, ayan sila, ACP sila. Next, question number 3, hanggang 100 to. Nicanor married Inday on August 3, 1988. My God, napakarami mga ganyan tanong. Tinanong ka pa, yung talagang date. Yung talagang saktong-sakto. So what is the property relationship of Nicanor and Inday? Natural. Absolute community property because this is the start of the effectivity of absolute community property. Okay? You have to be very careful, brothers and sisters. Kasi baka mamaya, hay, ano yung August 3? On or before ba yun? Or after? Beginning ba yun? Or ano? Okay, pag nalito ka na, malamang magkakamali ka. So, chill lang tayo parati. Question number 4. On the eve of the marriage of Nicanor and Inday, both entered into a contract and agreed that their property relationship is conjugal partnership of gains. Okay? They married the following day, January 31, year 2000. Okay? Sabi ko sa inyo, you have to stick to the facts. Huwag mong i-imaginein. Both entered into a contract, okay, and agreed that their property relationship is CPG. Ha? Nagpirmahan ba sila rito ng contract o hindi? Huwag mo lang imaginein yun. Yun lang ang sinabi ng problem. So the presumption is that nagpirma sila. Okay? Kasi minsan, alam nyo, let's not try to complicate simple matters. Okay? Kasi minsan sakit talaga yan ng mga BSA students or even if IA students. That's why I'm trying to tell you on how you should answer questions like this. You do not add facts to the facts. Okay? Let's go answer the questions again. For this question. On the eve of the marriage of Nicanor and Inday, both entered into a contract and agreed that their property relationship is conjugal partnership of gains. Kinasal sila year 2000. Napag-usapan, conjugal partnership of gains. So what is their property relationship? Of course, the answer is conjugal partnership of gains. Okay? Next, question number 5. On the eve of the marriage of Nicanor and Inday, both entered into a contract and agreed that their property relationship is absolute community of property. Ang tindi, no? Nag-usap pa talaga sila na mag-AACP sila. Samantalang ang kasal supposedly is August 31, year 2000. Even if there's no agreement, just in case na matuloy yung kasal, ACP pa rin sila. But anyway, gusto nila na mayroon silang prenuptial agreement, so wag na natin silang basagin ng trip. But the only problem in this problem is that on January 31, year 2000, the day which is supposed to be the happiest day in the life of Nicanor became the saddest. Bakit? Because Inday eloped with her first love, Rian. Oh my God. This really hurts. So what is now the property relationship of Nicanor and Inday? Answer, of course none. Sabi natin, if the marriage does not take place, okay, walang property relationship na pag-uusapan unless there are provisions, let's say donations, which are independent of the celebration of the marriage, yun lang ang valid. Pero if the donation is hinged on the happening of the marriage, so halimbawa, bibigay ko sa iyo itong 1 million na to kung matutuloy yung kasal. So, kung hindi natuloy yung kasal, hindi sa iyo mapupunta yung 1 million. Okay? So, yun ang ibig ko sabihin doon. Next, question number 6. On January 31, 2000, the date of the marriage, and before Nicanor and Inday exchanged I-do's, both orally, ayan, sinasabi na ng problem, mga clue na ito, agreed that their property relationship is absolute separation of property. Orally lang. Ibig sabihin, not in writing. Right after the marriage, tako, kinasal na, bago pinirmahan ang agreement. What is the property relationship of the spouses? Okay? Ang answer natin ay drum roll please. Absolute community. Bakit? Year 2000 ikinasal. Okay, pagpasensyahan niyo na ako, medyo corny ako ha. Question number 7. Nicanor and Inday were childhood lovers. Both of them took up Bachelor of Science in Accountancy at Near Western University. Since both don't have time for each other due to studies, ayan, mga seryoso sa pag-aaral, they broke up kasi they know that this is their priority. So both became certified public accountants and CIAs and lived separate lives. Nakakalungkot, di ba? Pero hindi natatapos ang story dyan. After 20 years of singleness, they saw each other and rekindled their romance. They agreed to spend their lives in togetherness forever. During cohabitation, Nicanor bought a house and lot. Inday stayed home to take care of Nicanor. Okay, what Who owns the house and lot now? What is their property relationship? There is no legal impediment here. Ayan, single kasi sila eh. Huwag niyong kakalimutan yung mga facts. Nako, tsaka yung law. Single sila. There's no legal impediment. They were not married. Right? So, who owns the house and lot? Anong sabi natin? Their a relationship will fall under co-ownership. So, sinong may-ari ng bahay at lupa? Eh di si Nicanor at saka si Inday. Even if it's only Nicanor who bought the house and lot, okay lang yan. Kasi, ayan Inday took care of Nicanor. So, this is the share of Inday. Okay, share of Inday. That's love. Okay. So, ayan. Next, question number 8. Nicanor and Inday were childhood lovers. Both of them took up Bachelor of Science in Accountancy at Near Eastern University. Since both don't have time for each other due to studies, they broke up. Okay, ito normal story to ng mga BSA students, naghiwalay. So both became CPAs and CIAs and lived separate lives. After 20 years, they saw each other and rekindled their romance. Ang masakit, they agreed to leave their spouses. Iwanan ng kanilang mga asawa. At sila ang magsama na lang habang buhay. Very bad. During cohabitation, Nicanor bought a house and lot. Inday stayed home to take care of Nicanor. Okay. I said very bad kasi I'm not trying to, parang support yung ganitong type of marriage. But of course, I would want to recognize that this is the right of Nicanor and Inday. Okay, I have friends, I know people who are into these kinds of relationships, even if they are married. Well, I can only surmise that maybe they found true happiness in their arms. So I'm not trying to judge here. I'm just trying to be clear. So ayoko lang din maging defensive. So during cohabitation, Nicanor bought a house. Inday stayed home to take care of Nicanor. So who owns the house and lot? So since there is, meron silang asawa, there's legal impediment. So if there's legal impediment, the rule on co-ownership will not apply. Anong sabi natin? Whatever is their actual contribution is their share. Okay? Nakakalungkot kasi si Inday ay sa bahay lamang. So kung wala siyang contribution, who owns the house and lot? It's Nicanor and his legal wife. Okay? The property will fall under the absolute community of property of Nicanor and his legal wife. This is actually the rule that we have discussed. Okay? So that's the end of our presentation. Okay, thank you for listening, brothers and sisters.